Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the EmeraldPlanet and EmeraldPlanet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what EmeraldPlanet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us. And Dr. Yang, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Glad to have you here. The short question is, why China? Why China as far as the world impact? Why China as far as smog and how it's impacting the rest of the world? But why is it so important that we solve the issue of smog in China? So let's look at a couple of these slides and then we'll talk about the impact. Why China? Tell us a little bit about what we're seeing right now.
Thank you. Why China? Because China is the most popular country with 14.3 billion people, roughly about 18% of the world population. Secondly, China is the second largest country in terms of GDP production, just after the US. And the Chinese people last year, I believe, produced about 15% of the world GDP. More importantly, the Chinese people emitted about 30% of the worldwide greenhouse gas emissions in 2019.
Yeah, now those are tremendous statistics. So, you have a major world power, has high gross domestic product, but yet at the same time it's emitting the highest percentage as far as greenhouse gases.
And also mercury, sulfur dioxide, China contributed about 25% of the worldwide emissions in each of these kind of pollutants.
Yeah, and mercury is a real issue.
Yeah.
We've been involved in green mining processes in the United States and abroad, and mercury can absolutely just destroy a local area. But we're going to look at some of the best practices, and this is something that you've been able to go all over China and find those different best practices, both in the rural areas and the urban areas. So I'm going to leave this image up because this is about the rural area, but why look at the rural areas of China when you have hundreds of millions of people in urban areas and very concentrated, some of the top largest megacities on the planet are in China? Why are you balancing rural with the urban?
Thank you. China is on the high process of urbanization. More and more rural people are moving to urban areas. So far, China has about 573 million rural population. And
that's an incredible number out of 1.4 billion people.
Yeah, so like 150% of this US population.
Right, correct.
So these people are rushing to the urban area. So far, each of the country people consumes only 1 ton of coal equivalent. But the urban resident consumes about 3.5 tons of this kind of
so roughly 3.5 times of what the rural area is actually using as far as coal is concerned.
Yeah, but if these people are moving towards the urban area with the former urban people, that means that the pollution, energy consumption will triple. So that will dramatically increase this kind of pollution in terms of carbon emissions and also PM 2.5. So in order to address this issue, we have to focus on these people to make sure they will have a green path while they are moving towards urban areas.
Or actually try to entice them to stay in the rural areas to give them a
Exactly.
higher income level.
Exactly.
Better access to amenities, not just education, healthcare, but the movies, music,
Exactly.
all these things that people, entertainment that people are coming in the 21st century to enjoy. But we have images of 3 different best practices on the screen. Tell us a little bit about this mix of the major power plant, the sunshine, and the biomass.
Yes, please. In China, we have done a lot of work to put this technology, U.S. technology, in China to generate power from biomass energy. Basically, the kind of waste, solid waste for power generation. Also, we encourage local residents in rural area to use their locally available renewable energy to generate biogas for power generation and for fuel for cooking as well. So basically, we hope in China by 2050, the rural people will use zero carbon-based energy, so that this rural area will become zero carbon economy in China.
Now, looking at this power plant, I know this is something the IFCE has really been working on as far as not only reducing the amount of coal or fossil fuels as going actually through these power plants, but also the emissions. We saw those stacks earlier. And so you're trying to actually scrub out a lot of the carbon emissions, but at the same time to take off the heat and the energy from these plants and use it either in the factory itself or in the cities. Tell us about the impact of this factory we're looking at right here.
Thank you. For this kind of factories, of course, we put this kind of clean coal technology like stacks in the factory that will use a little bit of amount of energy in there. But in the meantime, we use advanced technology to capture the waste gas for power generation at the same time. So together, actually, the energy efficiency has been improved already, not reduce the efficiency. So that's why with this kind of collaboration between US and China, using this clean coal technology will benefit the factories that will really enhance the capacity of the enterprises in terms of efficiency and the revenue increase as well.
That's fantastic. Also, too, is something that may be amazing to people. China now is the leader as far as wind energy, and this is going up all over China. And so tell us a little bit about wind power and how that's going in now to the mix of renewable energy as you broaden the base for renewable energy. And we're going to show some other examples of the renewable energy just in a few minutes.
Sure. Wind power production and wind power capacity installation, now China is the #1 worldwide in terms of accumulated capacity installation and additional capacity installation last year. So now worldwide, if we divided the wind power capacity into 3 parts, the China has 1 part. The US and Japan has the 2nd part. And the 3rd part is owned by all other countries together. So you can see the capacity of power generation in China, #1. So, and in terms of really electricity generation, I think China needs to learn from the US because the generation factor, capacity factor is much less than in the US.
Yeah. Now going to the solar, this is something that China now is excelling on. Of course, they have many companies that are producing solar panels, exporting around the globe. But more and more, China is actually using its own solar energy to offset the use of coal and other fossil fuels that are more polluting. So what is the factor as far as solar is concerned in China?
Factors for solar, I believe the Chinese government and the enterprises, the researchers, they have worked very hard over the past 15 or 20 years. And the technology in China is advancing dramatically over this period. For example, I met with a gentleman from the NDRC. He told me now the Chinese government and the people use their own created technology in solar. Solar in terms of materials and the technology development.
So they're doing the advances, the inventions,
research,
the improvements
R&D.
right in China itself.
China.
Right.
And they use their own materials for silicon process, and every 5 years in China, over the past 15, 20 years, every 5 years, the cost for silicon production or solar PV production reduced by 50%.
That's absolutely
every 5 years.
That's fantastic. Now, looking at hydro, this is something people know about the Three Gorges Dam and all that, but you have dams all over China. So this really is a renewable energy source, correct?
Yes. In terms of hydro, I think that the Chinese people have made use of most of the resources of hydro already. Like you mentioned, the Three Gorges hydro power plant, and in addition, there are a large number of medium-sized or small-sized hydro power plants already. And this using hydropower has significantly contributed to China in rural electrification and the clean energy production as well. So this is fantastic. If I have time, I can make you an example. I don't know.
Well, let's move on through these because this is really, it's just as far as now we're talking about leading the world as far as the PV race, they're calling it. But the whole thing about that, it's really important that China really does have this inventiveness and is starting to use it for its own people.
Of course, the Chinese technologies have been exported to overseas in Africa, for example, in India. I met with a gentleman in India. He told me they use the Chinese made solar PV in India. With that technology, they can generate electricity at the cost of $0.3 per kilowatt hour electricity, which is very, very low.
That's very low, absolutely.
Very low.
Yeah, but anyway, and then also the wind power, we were talking about this earlier, and how China now is #1 in the world as far as producing the wind power. And you can see that how it's gradually gaining over time. So looking at the solar, the wind, of course the hydro, how do you see that as shaping the future of China as far as moving away from the fossil fuels and using more renewables?
Thank you. In the future, I believe China will combine this kind of different kind of renewable energy together, technologies together. For example, we will electrify, or we call electrify the rural people in the second wave. That means now Chinese rural people has been electrified already, but they use the fossil fuels.
Right.
Now we're talking about the second wave of rural electrification, using renewable energy technologies with a target of 0 carbon emission for rural people.
And that's what we're showing right here. So what we're looking at is that actually they're capturing that, using it, also using syngas, which is much less polluting, less particulate matter. So what do you see for the advances, and we'll say the rural and urban areas, over the next 5 or 10, 15 years? And we got to be quick, we got about 15 seconds.
So we will use this kind of technology, biogas generation technology, to generate the power, generate the heat for the rural people, combined with the solar, wind, because this way the whole rural people can be electrified by 0 carbon technologies.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yang. Thank you for being with us as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.